If you like books and bookstores, you're going to love this episode. Welcome to the Perrysburg Podcast, episode 103. I am your host, Perrysburg resident Kim Newlove. The Perrysburg Podcast is a resource for Perrysburg residents. Whether you're thinking about moving here, this is day one, or you've been here for a while, this podcast is for you. We talk about what's in Perrysburg and why people like to live here. Our website is perrysburgpodcast.com. This is part 3 in my 4-part summer reading series. The goals of the series are to either encourage you to read this summer or inspire you to write your first book. Part 1 of this series was my interview with Alicia and Tracy over at Way Public Library about their summer reading programs. Part 2 was my interview with Perrysburg resident and author Bill Williams. We talked about his first book, which is titled 20 Years of Internet Humor and Other Interesting Things, Volume 1, and he also shared some advice and inspiration for first-time authors. Part 3 is today. In just a minute, I will share my interview with Denise Phillips. Denise owns and operates Gathering Volumes Bookstore, that is an independent bookstore located right here in Perrysburg. We'll talk about Denise's inspiration to open an independent bookstore, the layout of the store, book fairs for children and adults, events, book clubs, her staff, the store's website, newsletter, and social media pages, what's next for Gathering Volumes, and more. And then my summer reading series wraps up next week on July 18th with part 4. That is my interview with Perrysburg resident and author Gary Franks. Gary will talk about his books. He has written more than one, the research needed to put his books together, his co-authors, advice for first-time authors, and more. Now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Denise Phillips from Gathering Volumes Bookstore. Hi, Denise. Welcome to the Perrysburg Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. I shop at your store all the time, and now we get to have you on the podcast.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. All right, we're going to talk about the origin of Gathering Volumes.
Mhm.
How did it get started?
So we moved to Perrysburg from Chicago. My husband grew up here. He's a Perrysburg grad. And we moved here when our kids were just getting to school age. And I, at the time, worked for First Solar in the IT department. And I remember calling my husband because I moved first with the kids and saying, I Googled it, and the closest independent bookstore is in Ann Arbor. And his response was, that seems about right. And my response was, no, I don't think that seems right. So I did work for First Solar for 5 years. But then I gave him my notice, and I had created a business plan and decided that I thought Perrysburg could support a bookstore. And so in June of 2016, so 9 years ago, we opened Gathering Volumes.
Awesome. And I've been shopping there ever since.
Oh, you're awesome.
I remember when you told us that you worked for First Solar. My husband works at First Solar right now,
Mhm.
and I thought that was kind of cool. So I felt like I could relate immediately. It's like, if this person worked at First Solar, I think we're going to get along with her.
Yeah, yeah, and it was a great experience. But yeah, I just thought it kind of was the be the change you want to see. So after about 3 years of living here and no one else had opened a bookstore for me to shop at, I decided if I wanted a bookstore, I needed to do that myself.
Yep, you'd have to start one yourself. But you were in IT before
Mhm.
previously, right?
Yeah, I was an IT project manager.
All right. That must have helped you as you were getting started, right?
Oh, for sure.
How did that help you?
The biggest impact I think it had for me was COVID. So when COVID hit and bookstores had to shut down their brick and mortar, I already had a website because that was part of my initial plan. That was part of a requirement for me. For project managers, we have requirements, right? One of my requirements was to have a website that was I knew was never going to compete with Amazon, but at least had most of the functionality. So every book and print that we can get for you is on our website. It tells you whether it's in store. It tells you whether it's new or used in store and the price, and you can buy it online. You can tell us whether you want to pick it up in store or whether you want to, at the time, it was pick it up in store or ship. And so, because I already had a decent website, when COVID hit, I could shift to, okay, what do I have to change for COVID versus, oh my God, I need a website, right? So we added local delivery really quick. So if you ordered a book from us and we had it in store, I would deliver it to you the next day. If it wasn't in store, it gives you a quote for how long we think it will take to get to us and then to you. So I was able to kind of pivot to that the COVID need pretty quick because I already had the base for it. Whereas a lot of stores were just trying to figure out how to even get a website that had the books they had in store online available. Because most bookstores, and mine included, we really prefer to sell to you in person. Like that's why we opened a bookstore. I didn't open a bookstore to, be in the back room packaging up packages and dropping them off at your house. But if that's what you need, I want to provide that. So that was probably the biggest impact that my IT background had that made the bookstore better.
Okay. Did you guys have curbside pickup? I
We
think you
did,
did
yeah.
too.
We added curbside pickup too. We had always had pickup in store, so it just kind of became instead of pickup in store, you were picking it up at the curb because we weren't letting you in the store. So, but yeah, we did have that as well.
Okay. I seem to remember that. So thank you
Yeah.
for confirming that. We used to live in Toledo, and I don't know if you've ever heard this story, but we used to live down the street from Thackeray's bookstore. Have you ever heard of Thackeray's?
I have. I hear about it from so I did not live here when Thackeray's was open. But from day one of opening the bookstore, I learned really, really quickly that if somebody told me my bookstore reminded them of Thackeray's, that it was the highest compliment I could get. People loved Thackeray's. And when we started taking used books, we get a lot of Thackeray's receipts and bookmarks in the used books we take. So yes, it's very obvious it was a very beloved bookstore.
Yes, I loved Thackeray's, and I used to take my kids there. When Thackeray's closed down, I can't remember what year it was. I was sad. And when your bookstore opened and we went in there, I'm like, this is like Thackeray's. Maybe not the footprint of it, the
Mhm.
size of it, because they used to have these stair steps that the kids would sit on and they would have story time. Anyways, so physically, it's not exactly the same, but the customer service is great. And I still use my receipts from your store as my bookmarks. And Thackeray's got me started on that. They would always put the bookmark in the book and they'd hand it over. Sometimes you'd get your receipt, sometimes not. It depended on if you asked for it or not
Mhm.
back in the day. But anyways, I do that because of Thackeray's.
Ah,
Yeah. So I
so lovely story.
I love Thackeray's. I love your bookstore.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. My pleasure. Well, let's talk about what's inside the store. I just
Mhm.
talked about physically, it's different from Thackeray's,
Mhm.
but how would you describe your store?
So we are in a strip mall. So I think a lot of people fantasize about opening a bookstore and you want it to be in this cool old building with like all these unique architectural structures and eh, I would love that. However, the real estate that was available when I was looking was mostly strip malls. So we are in a strip mall, but we try to make it unique. We have stuff hanging from the ceiling. We have bookish posters. We try to make it visually appealing. And then we also try to make it set up in a logical fashion, right? So you have most of the nonfiction as you walk in, you kind of walk towards the back, and then you have the fiction, and then you have the used, and kind of it's not really a cubby, it's big, but the way the building is structured, it's kind of off on its own. It's pretty obvious that that's the used section, I think. Um, and then we curate our books, which is the whole point of having a local independent bookstore. So we curate our books based off of what our customers are looking for. So right when you walk in, you see the local history section because that's always a very popular genre. And so we set it up and we curate to try and make sure that we have what our customers are looking for. Perrysburg is such a family oriented town. We do have a fairly big children's section. Because we have a lot of families that come in. So it's geared around Perrysburg and the citizens of Perrysburg. And hopefully we're doing a good job. And we've been 9 years, so hopefully we've got it well curated now.
It has grown, I must
Hmm.
say. At first, there was a little bit of space in the middle of it, and we used to play euchre.
Yep.
Remember? Yeah, you used to
Yeah.
have euchre night. That's where my son Derek learned how to play euchre.
Nice. That's where my kids learned too. So yeah, originally we had an open space and it was meant to be our event space, whether that was an author signing or whether that was euchre night or a crafting night. Again, COVID changed things. So it became somewhat wasted space when we weren't able to do events. So even when we were able to reopen the store, we weren't really back to let's do events with a bunch of people sitting around a table breathing on each other, right? Um, so we have these rolly bookcases that we use for book fairs. And we started using those as actual shelving in the store when we weren't traveling to a book fair. And they are still there as that. So we do not do as many events where we need to say set up tables. But because they are mobile bookcases, we are back to doing author signings. And so we can roll them into the back room and put up chairs for an event. But on a normal day when we're not having an event, it looks much more full than it did originally.
Yes, when you walk into Gathering Volumes, you'll see lots of bookshelves. So
Mhm.
if you are listening to this and you have not been to Gathering Volumes, what's the street address?
196 East South boundary in Perrysburg.
Awesome. And if you happen to be driving by, there's a sign outside that says Hershey's Ice Cream right
Mm.
next door to Gathering Volumes. Just swing on in and check it out. Yes, as soon as you walk in, it's wall to wall books, bookshelves everywhere. Yes.
Yes.
I have been there a number of times. So, my audience, you must check this out. Going back to how the store is set up, I know you've got usually just one person working there, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Yes.
So, and that person is usually pretty knowledgeable about books, I have found. And if you can't find what you want, I know that, oh boy, I've come up to you many times. Do you have this? I'm looking for this. And
Yeah.
there's a lot. I'm not saying it's overwhelming, but sometimes I'm in a hurry or I've got my son with me and he's in a hurry.
Mhm.
So I'll ask you, and I would say that the customer service is excellent.
Well, thank you. That is
Yeah.
definitely like again, being a local independent bookstore, that is high on our list of priorities. I have 3 employees. 2 of them are actually published authors. So, so I feel like that's a great representation. We do have a lot of local authors in the area. Like it's amazing when you start looking into it how many authors there are in the area. Um, but it also most authors are also avid readers. So we are all very avid readers. And then my one employee who's not a published author just graduated from high school. So we generally try to keep one younger employee in as well. So between the 4 of us, I think we can give you recommendations for just about anything you're looking for. But sometimes we may have to ask each other. So there may be a slight delay while we're like, okay, I'm going to check with Kelly to see what a good, werewolf story is because that's a niche that she's into. That's what she's writing right now. If you come in and ask for that, if you come in and ask for a kid's book, you're probably going to get me or my advice. Because I have kids. Well, Sherry and Kelly have kids too, but I tend to be the one who's most excited to tell you about the best middle grade book that my kid loved. So I think between the 4 of us, we can give you a pretty good recommendation.
Right. I know that there are search engines. There's Google, there's ChatGPT, but there's nothing like talking to a human, right, in your, area where you live who can give you some advice or somebody who's been to the book fairs
Mhm.
and seen what the kids are picking. So would you
Yeah.
like to talk a little bit about your experience with book fairs and how that maybe has shaped how you recommend books to other people?
Oh, yes. I love book fairs, and I do try to be there myself when we do book fairs because I love them. But yeah, part of it definitely want to get books in kids' hands, right? But it's also a little bit of data collection for me and my IT background, right? Of, okay, which book are they all kind of like swarming to, or which book is catching their eye, right? Like which cover is really like grabbing their attention. So it helps me a lot in the store to be able to give recommendations now that my kids are older and in high school. Like that's where I get a lot of my recommendations for the younger elementary kids, right? We take a ton of picture books to a book fair. And this year, Bakery Dragon, like really caught all their eyes, right? And the creepy series, the creepy crayons and creepy pair of underwear, like those always catch their eye. So it's a little bit of data collection for me, but it's also just fun being in that energy of like kids coming in and so excited to see all the books and the newest Dog Man, and it's just such a great week to get to be enveloped in the energy of the kids.
Now, which school districts do you visit when or which private schools do you visit when you have the book
Oh,
fairs?
so yeah, so we do a number of book fairs and we do them for kind of across the board. So we do have private schools. We probably started out mainly in private schools, and mainly because they were looking for specific books, right? And maybe Scholastic's books weren't, what was being sent to them wasn't reflective of their education style. So for example, Westside Montessori, Montessori schools have very specific books that they're looking for. One of the things that I have in researching is for the younger kids, they like books that have actual pictures versus illustrations. So I bring in a lot of board books that have actual pictures of babies in them to read to babies, or actual pictures of animals. The Babies and Doggies book is one of the most popular books in store, let alone at the book fair. But I got it in for their book fair as a preschool book for their preschoolers, so we can gear towards that. So when we first started doing book fairs, we were doing a lot for private schools, but we do book fairs for some of the Perrysburg schools as well. We do the spring book fair at Woodland Elementary, which is the elementary school my kids went to many years ago before I was doing book fairs for schools. And we do a fall book fair for Perrysburg Junior High. One of the things Scholastic has changed recently is they're doing less YA books. So for junior high students, they don't have quite as robust of a selection. So we try to bring a really robust selection out to the junior high.
Very nice. And that's where you use those wheelie bookcases that
Yes,
you were
so I
talking
have a
about, right?
giant van that I wheel bookcases into and wheel them out into the school, so it makes setup a lot quicker than having to. We do use tables as well, but having to do all tables, it takes. I don't want to take that much time away from the school representative when to do setup. So the bookcases make it so we open them up, we clean them up a little, and we're done in like an hour versus how long it would take to pull books out of boxes and set them up nicely on tables. It would be a much longer process.
Thank you for talking about the book fairs for children. Now let's talk about
Yeah.
book fairs for adults.
Yes. So Ernest Brewworks is very kind, and they invite us in to do adult book fairs, which that sounds bad. So we call them brewery book fairs, because I feel like adult book fairs makes it sound like we're bringing very niche books in, and we're not. We're bringing all the genres in.
Good call,
Um,
Denise. This is PG here. Yes. So the book fairs for adults. Sorry if I
yes.
insinuated anything
No,
unwholesome.
I just when I yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so we have one coming up this month, June 19th, I believe. It's always on a Thursday, and we're at Ernest Brew Works Westgate. And eventually, and really what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring the joy of the book fair experience, the school book fair experience, to adults. So we bring pretty much all the genres out with us. And we do bring some kids stuff. We do have a couple families that come in pretty regularly. So we do bring a few kids books, but it's mostly adult books. And then some fun sidelines, some fun pens and pencils, some baseball caps, some plushies sometimes. So some fun sidelines too, to make it really be the book fair experience.
Yeah. How fun. Did you think of that yourself, book fairs for adults, or was this something you modeled it after?
So I'm in a lot of forums, like whether they're web forums, whether it's Facebook groups of other booksellers, and we kind of all share. And so I don't remember which bookstore I saw doing this, but I was like, wow, I do kids book fairs. Like I could totally do this. And then so I reached out to the owners of Ernest because I had met them at a different event. And they were open to letting us try it. So the first one we did was actually a fundraiser for the Northwest Ohio Teen Book Festival, and it was at Ernest Brew Works downtown. And then after they opened their Westgate location, I was actually talking to Scott, the owner, about possibly opening a second bookstore in Toledo. And I said, "Would you let me try this at your Westgate location so I could see if there's enough of an interest in having a bookstore in the Westgate area again?" Because I think that's where Thackeray's
That
was.
is, yeah, definitely
Um,
at Central and
and
Secor.
and he was, kind enough to open his space up and let us give it a shot. And now we do it almost monthly. We do it pretty regularly now. So it seems to work out for both of us.
This episode's going to come out the second Friday in July. So do you have anything
Oh.
coming up in July?
As far as the book fair goes,
Book
or
fairs.
in general,
Yep.
yes, we do, but I don't have the date in front of me. It's usually the third or fourth Thursday of the month. It's always a Thursday, but it'll be on our Facebook events. It'll be on our website calendar. And then we send a newsletter out. So for anybody who's ever been to the bookstore and given us their email, they'll get it in a newsletter. So there is a July one, but I apologize. I don't have the date in front of me.
Not a problem. Giving people resources like a website or an opportunity to sign up for a newsletter or a Facebook events page that they can go to, that's very helpful because not only will the people listening to this in July benefit from that, but then people listening to this in the future who may want to check it out in December will be like, oh, okay, I'll just go to the website and see what's going on.
Well,
Right?
thank you.
Yeah. And see, there's another reason that your IT background may have helped you. Starting a newsletter, it helps inform your followers, basically, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, speaking of IT background, so I do have the newsletter, and I've always had the e-newsletter, but I actually added a postcard version of the newsletter for those who are sick of emails. So we actually do like old school mailed postcards with our events as well, for those who just don't want to get another email in their email box.
I've gotten mailers from you,
Mhm.
definitely. Yeah, and that's the reason I bought some books before too. So, I mean, you're doing it right. And you're right. Some people do get too many emails. I'm one of them. And I try to at least open them and look at the pictures. And
Mhm.
you have a lot of pictures in your newsletter, which
Mhm.
really breaks it up because when you're reading words about books, sometimes it gets a little boring.
Yeah.
No offense, but
And
it
bookish people, we can get a little wordy.
well, with so much to read, it's so nice to have pictures.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like your newsletter.
Well, thank you.
Keep up the
I
good work.
appreciate it.
No problem. Would you say that those book fairs for adults have
Mhm.
been successful for you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. For me, finding anybody who doesn't know we're there is huge. And then also just getting books in people's hands that are going to get them excited and reading again is huge. Like I think there's a real need for that. I think there's a word for it that's not coming to my head, but like book therapy. There's one woman in particular who I've heard. I think she has a podcast, and she calls herself a book therapist. And the theory is there's always the right book, right? There's always the book you need right now.
There's a book
Um,
for that.
yeah, and it changes. I used to read a ton of historical fiction, like that was my go-to. Um, and then I'm gonna bring up COVID again because it was such an impact, but I needed an escape, and I discovered fantasy, and I discovered a love for fantasy. And so I would say now I probably read more fantasy and sci-fi than I do historical fiction, whereas if you'd talked to younger me, I would have been like, historical fiction is my go-to. Our needs change. And so, an algorithm that's only feeding you books from what you've read in the past might not be what you need right now. And when you come in and talk to somebody who understands that, you might discover that you actually do like science fiction.
That's why the customer service aspect of a local independent bookstore is so important. When you talk to somebody who's read the books or can suggest something for you, or if you see a cover and that, Denise sees you looking at that cover, she can say, do you like that genre? Or have you read that yet? Or you might like that because. So
Yeah.
I really
I
appreciate
do
that.
have people who will come in the bookstore and be like, "Have you read every book in here?" And I will say we have over 20,000 books in the store. So I have not read every book in the store, but I do get very excited when you pick up a book I have read and I can tell you about it, or I can tell you about other ones I loved as well, right? So if you tell me that you have read Emily Henry, like I am ready to give you some recommendations. Or if you tell me that you that you love Sarah J. Maas, I'm ready to give you some recommendation, right? So yeah, I get really excited about recommending books.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure that would be really exciting for people who are at Ernest Brew Works in
Hmm.
Toledo who haven't heard of your bookstore. They see the books, they know they like books, and then you make that connection and then you invite them to your store in Perrysburg. Of course, you'll sell them a book right there at the brewery, but
Right.
you know, I could see a connection between you guys, Gathering Volumes, and Destination Toledo, who
Hmm.
has the, oh, I'm going to mess up the name of it, but they've got the beer tour
Hmm.
here in,
Yeah.
yeah, in Northwest Ohio. Have you talked to the Destination Toledo folks?
We have been in the Destination Toledo guide that they put out
Okay.
before, so I definitely have talked to them. I don't know that we have enough bookish things in the area to have a tour like the beer or they do the coffee quest one, right? Too. I don't drink coffee, but I think I see people doing the coffee quest. I don't know that we have enough resources, but I have started a map on my own that I want to eventually publish of bookstores along I-75.
That would be cool. I think it's called the 419 Ale Trail.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking you could have more book fairs for adults
Oh,
along
yeah.
the Ale Trail. You were talking about
That
I
is true. Yeah.
75, but yeah, could be
Yeah,
the
that would be
thing.
fun. But yeah, I would love to put together like a bus trip
Oh,
down 75 and stopping at the bookstores that are right along I-75. That's a big picture dream of mine one day. So we'll see if I ever manage to get that put together.
there you go. There you go. That sounds like fun to me. Awesome. Well, we talked about the store, how it got started, the book fairs. Now, tell me, why should somebody shop local? I know you're really big about
I am.
local.
I am very passionate about shopping local. So I do believe strongly in keeping my household funds local. I've seen enough of the data to see that when my $20 bill goes to a local store, a large percentage of that $20 bill stays local at that point, right? Some of it's going to go to credit card fees. It's going to go to stuff outside of the local community, but most of that $20 bill is going to stay local. When the owner of that business goes out to dinner, they're going to a local restaurant. And when the owner of that business, has to pay their utilities, it's going to a local utility company. Um, versus that $20 bill going to someone in say California or Seattle or, a business outside of this area. So I believe wholeheartedly in keeping my household funds local. I also believe wholeheartedly in supporting other community members and my neighbors, right? Um, so I know the owners of a lot of local businesses, and it's not because I own another local business. It's because I go into their business and I talk to them. So Green Bubble Gorgeous moved in next door to the bookstore. They moved from Grand Rapids, Ohio. They've always been a local, somewhat local business. They moved from Grand Rapids, Ohio to Perrysburg. Crystal's the owner. She's amazing. She's expanded her business into having this cute boutique, and it's a great place for me to run and grab a last minute gift. I grabbed a bunch of bath bombs yesterday for folks. And they've got all kinds of cool stuff in there. So knowing that I'm supporting her and her family with my purchase also makes me feel like I'm making better choices. Um, so I believe wholeheartedly that we should shop local, we should support our neighbors, and we should keep our money local. Also, you hear all the time like Amazon's not sponsoring your kids' travel baseball team, right? And maybe they are, maybe I'm totally out of it, but I hear that phrase a lot. I know I get asked a lot to sponsor events. um, so again, supporting your local businesses isn't just about the things I said about supporting local neighbors and keeping your money local, but it also is supporting local projects such as a travel baseball team, such as the local gardening club, so I feel passionately about that.
I can tell. I appreciate you sharing that too with my audience here. And then I know on Small Business Saturday in
Mhm.
November, you
Mhm.
always have a sign saying, like, I participate in Small Business Saturday. Would you
Uh-huh.
like to talk about that?
Yeah, so that is sponsored by American Express, and I don't remember how long ago they started it. It was before I started the bookstore, but it was them kind of not pushing back per se, but kind of giving an option for shoppers aside from Black Friday, right? So Black Friday tended to be the big box stores. You know, you were lining up outside Best Buy or you were lining up outside, Target, to do your Black Friday shopping. And it was sort of introduced as, you could also shop local. American Express started supporting this program, and it took off, and we learned, yes, people do want to support their local businesses. So we used to help organize stuff. They don't really do that as much. They don't ask you to organize stuff with other businesses. So now it's really more each business signs up and kind of does their own thing. But we always do a big sale. And we also do our sale extends the whole weekend. So it's not just Small Business Saturday, but we do kind of extend a sale for the whole weekend, kind of giving you a good incentive to come shop at your local bookstore.
Yeah, I would like to come visit you on Small Business Saturday and see if I can get some good deals. I always have a list of books that I want to read.
Mhm.
And yeah, I will definitely have to bring my list with me when I shop on Small Business Saturday in November. And so instead of it being Black Friday, it's the day after Black Friday, right?
Yep.
Yep. That's a good way to remember it.
Yeah.
Everybody knows Black Friday, day after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Well, we have covered a lot. One of the things that we have not covered yet is events. I
Mhm.
know that you've got the book fairs, but what
Mhm.
other events do you have?
So we do a decent amount of events. So we do a lot of events organized around local authors, and whether that's they have a book releasing. So we're doing an event for Christine Brennan coming up. She has a biography of Caitlin Clark coming out on July 8th. So on July 9th, we will actually be at Ottawa Hills Junior Senior High with her. She's an Ottawa Hills grad. So the school is very generously offered to host the event there and their auditorium. Um, and so we do a lot of book release events for local authors, but we also have what I think is going to be a super fun evening planned coming up in a week, I think next Saturday. We're going to bedazzle book covers. So diamond painting has been a really popular a craft hobby recently. So we're taking it to the book level, I guess. We are going to bedazzle book covers. So we have authors E.M. Anderson and Anastasia Ryan that are going to join us. They each have 2 books, and basically you purchase one of their books and you come in and we've got all the supplies so you can put little crystals on your book cover and make your book cover sparkly. And I will say I am not a diamond painter, but I have now done 2 book covers and it was super fun. And they look really cool. So I'm super excited about that event. So we do the traditional author events when they have a book come out, but we also try to do some creative events, like the book fairs, like the bedazzling a book cover, as well, just fun things for bookish people to do together.
Bedazzling a book cover is for adults and children, right?
Yes. Yep. Anybody can do it. And then we actually have an event coming up that's another fundraiser for the Northwest Ohio Teen Book Festival where we're going to make miniature bookcases. So they're basically dollhouse size bookcases that we have the bookcases already, but you can paint them, decorate them however you want. You could even bedazzle them if you wanted to. And then we're going to make little miniature books. And so yesterday I had my 10-year-old niece and my daughter who just graduated from high school doing it so I could video their hands while they were doing it because it's hard for me to video myself because I'm not very skilled in that. And they got totally into it. My 10-year-old niece was like super excited about making these little books, and my daughter started painting the bookcase. But yeah, all of our events are child friendly to a degree. Like a 2-year-old is not, you don't want your 2-year-old coming with the roller cutter to cut, book covers. That's not an ideal situation. But I can tell you 10-year-olds loved it. So
Awesome. Once upon a time, there was a fairy garden movement. You know what I'm
oh
talking
yes.
about?
Yeah, we had a fairy garden.
There you go. And I could just see this being something where you make this little bookshelf, this
Mhm. Mhm.
dollhouse sized bookshelf, and you put it maybe right next to the entrance to your house and people can just look
Yeah.
at what's on the bookshelf. I think that would be cool. But what else could you do with this doll-sized bookshelf?
Well, I mean, mine's just sitting on my bookshelf. The one that I made is a sample one. It just looks cute on my bookshelf as a mini bookshelf next to my big books. So I mean, you could
Okay.
do anything you wanted with it.
I could see it on a
Um,
mantle, maybe on a
yeah,
fireplace. Yeah,
yeah,
like a decoration.
absolutely. Yeah. uh, You could do whatever you want with it, or you could put it in an actual dollhouse. Who knows?
That is so true. Oh my gosh, that should have been my first guess. Awesome. Denise, you talked about local authors. It sounds like you go on location. You're
Hmm.
talking about this Ottawa Hills area author
Hmm.
and having an event there.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, what do you do with local authors right there at Gathering Volumes here in
Yeah.
Perrysburg?
So we definitely do many local author events at the store. It's more frequent that we do it at the store than offsite. But if there's a connection, or if somebody reaches out to us and says, "Hey, we want to have this author come talk. Can you sell books?" We're happy to do that as well. Um, and we partner with the Way Library for some of our events. So we have, I'm going to pronounce her name wrong, Angelique Chenglis coming in. She's a journalist, and she writes. She's written quite a few books about University of Michigan, and Michigan versus Everybody is her latest. And where that event will actually be at Way Public Library. And I had reached out to them, and they were so. I think they're just as excited as I am, but they were very open to us using their space because it's bigger than our space. So my thought was she is likely to draw more people than we can fit in the bookstore. But yeah, Wade Public Library has been a great partner for a number of events, but we do quite a few in store. So we have Dr. Greta Lynn Euling from University of Michigan coming down to talk about her book, Decolonizing Ukraine. And that will be in the bookstore. Marianne Novi's coming in to talk about, she's from University of Pittsburgh, but she's coming in to talk about her book, Adoption Memoirs, as well. So the majority of our events are in store, but every now and then we either need a bigger venue or the author has a connection and prefers a different venue. And so we are happy to go off site for those.
If somebody's interested in hosting an event
Hmm.
offsite
Yeah.
and having an author, how do they
Mhm.
get in touch with you about that?
Oh, they just call the store or email. If you go to the website and do contact us, it comes to me. It's my email. And yeah, so Bowling Green University had an author recently, and we went out and did an event there. So yeah, we are more than happy. We have we have bookcases if we need lots of books, or we can just bring some boxes out with us, if you want to just set up a table and have us bring in a few boxes of books. So yeah, we can handle just about anything that somebody's looking for an author for. We're going down to Findlay for a Juneteenth event as well. So yeah, if you're doing like a big event and you just think books would be a good addition, reach out.
Awesome. Thank you for the invitation.
Hmm.
That's great. Now, I know we've been talking about books, 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 all about books and authors. How about book clubs? Do you have any
Hmm.
book clubs at your store?
We do. We have 4 book clubs. 3 meet at the store, and 1 meets at Ernest Brew Works South Toledo. So you can see a little connection there. I've wrapped Brew Works into the book world. We have Wine and Words that meets the first Tuesday of every month. And that book club, we invite the author to join us for a discussion of the book. So we read all genres because it's really geared more around the authors. And so we just did, this month we had E.M. Anderson in with her new cozy fantasy. Um, and we're taking July off because the first Tuesday of the month always hits right around July 4th. So it's always kind of a dodgy date. But in August, we have Stephanie Eating coming in with The Unplanned Life of Josie Hale. So we do that book club reads multiple genres. And then we also have a mystery thriller book club where we read mysteries and thrillers. We have a sci-fi fantasy book club where we read sci-fi and fantasy. And then we actually have David actually runs a nonfiction book club. They read mostly history and biographies. And it's very popular. That's not my genre. So it's not one that you would want me leading, but David does a fantastic job. He picks really good books and does a great job leading the book club.
Thank you for sharing all of that. I
Hmm.
actually have not participated in any of the book clubs, but
Hmm.
that really interests me that you have that one for adults at
Uh-huh.
Ernest Brew Works. The other three, did you say they were for youngsters?
No, they're all for adults.
All for adults.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep, they're all for adults. We have had book clubs. I didn't do it this summer because with my daughter graduating, our summer's quite busy. In the past, we would do summer book clubs that were geared towards kids. kids read a lot for school, and, when my kids were younger, they had book clubs, and they would meet at the bookstore for sure, but I feel like their reading is pretty full during the school year, so we, in the past, have done summer book clubs to keep them reading during the summer. So we've done, The Keeper of Lost Cities is one of my favorite kids, like, fantasy series, so we've done where we would read 3 of the books, 1 per month during the summer, and generally, by the end of the summer, the kids in the book club had read the entire 10-book series. Like, they would get really into it.
Wow.
But we would talk about the first 3 during the summer. And then we've done teen book clubs where we've read young adult books, either in a series or not. So we have done kids book clubs in the past, but this year we don't have any right now.
Okay, but if somebody finds this episode next year, you might have something cooking up for
Yeah,
summer
absolutely.
2026.
Yeah, we'll probably be back summer 2026 with school age book clubs for the summer.
All right. Well, thank you for talking about your book clubs.
Yeah.
Like I said, I have not participated in those yet. I guess the one that caught my ear was the Ernest Brew Works one
Mhm.
because I heard wine.
Yeah, yeah.
Wine and
So
words.
we started out as Wine and Words. We used to meet at Suburban Bottle, which you would know was the winery store in downtown Perrysburg. Unfortunately, COVID, she shut down. Um, so it started as Wine and Words because we were at Suburban Bottle where they had wine. Then we changed it to Wine and Words Beer and Books when we moved to Six Fifths Distilling because they had both. And now we're at a brewery, so we've kind of I need to shift my verbiage to more the beer and books. He does have wine as an option. He has seltzer, he has all sorts of stuff. But really everybody's drinking their craft beer when we're there. So I need to shift my verbiage to call it beer and books instead.
It's a unique opportunity, you
Yeah,
know? They
it's
don't offer
fun.
that at Way Public Library.
They actually, I think, did. I thought they had one that met at Cachino de Carlos, but it may not be in that may not have it may not still be happening. I think they did have one. And the Toledo Library has one. Um, and I don't remember where they meet, but they have one also that involves meeting at the bar, but I can't remember what they call their book clubs.
I meant in the building, but
Oh yeah, no, I don't think I can't foresee me bringing a bottle of wine into the library anytime soon.
that is what I am talking about, ma'am. That is funny. There's actually something called hops and hymns, I think, where people sing church hymns and drink. And I forget if
Oh,
it's at the Blarney. It might be at the Blarney in downtown
that's
Toledo.
fun.
But anyways, anytime somebody does something that is a little bit off the beaten path,
Yeah.
it catches my ear. So thank you
Yeah.
for again telling me about your book clubs. That's good.
If I could sing, I would be into the hops and hymns too, but I can't sing.
You
You
could
don't want
probably
me. You don't want me singing in the bar. Trust me.
I would like to go just to listen because I may not know the hymns that they're singing. And, I like music. So I think
Yeah.
that could be fun. Haven't done that yet either. I've just heard about it. Actually, I think I've seen some, videos people post on Facebook. Anyways, we have talked about an awful lot of stuff. Some of the things that we haven't gotten into are some of the more challenging questions, like what has been your favorite thing about owning a small independent bookstore?
Oh, I mean, I think the answer has to be getting to engage with the community and meet so many people that I would never have met in the community through the bookstore. And I think you're talking to people about the books they read, like you really get to know someone. It's you you definitely get a quick look into their inner workings when you find out, what they read. So for sure, my favorite thing has been getting to engage with the community and getting to meet more people in the community. I tell people often I lived here for 5 years before I opened the bookstore, but I really found my people after I opened the bookstore. It was really a great way for me to meet people with similar interests to myself.
That is such a check in the positive column. I
Yeah,
love
for
that.
sure.
I love that. This podcast has gotten me more out into the community,
Mhm.
talking to people that I would not otherwise have talked to. And I think it makes it easier to talk to people in this community because we're a lot more similar than we are different.
For sure. Yeah, and there just aren't as many options. I mean, I had met people through the schools where my kids were students, right? Like there I don't feel like I'm old. I don't so I'm going to be old here for a minute and be like I don't feel like we have as many I don't feel like we get out in the community as much as we used to. And all of our communities have grown. So Perrysburg is much bigger now than it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Um so it feels like it's become a little bit harder. And I know our farmers market's very popular. And so I know the community and the city are trying to do things that get people out into the community, engage with their neighbors more. But I will again put the pitch in. Shop local is really a great way to get out. One of the best days is when I have two very different customers in the store who've never met, who and one sees the other pick up a book they've read and they're like, "Oh, it's a great book." Right? Like and then seeing that engagement between two people who I may have met before but who have never met each other before, to see that engagement and to see them start chatting and how comfortable they are with each other just because of a book someone has in their hand. Um, so yeah, that's my pitch. Shop local so you can get out and meet your community.
That's a lovely moment you just talked about. That
Mhm.
really is. Yeah. All right. Another hard question for you. What's been your biggest challenge owning an independent bookstore?
Well, I've already mentioned COVID, so I won't mention COVID again. I just got audited by the state. That was a bit of and it wasn't really a challenge, but it was nerve-wracking. Like I was so nervous. But and I even had to call my mother-in-law's a CPA, and I got the letter afterwards, and it said that they had no findings. And in my head, I'm like, I think that's positive, but does that mean they're coming back? Like, what does no find? So I had to call her and be like, okay, I just want to make sure I can like breathe again, right? And I'm like, does no findings mean we're done and I'm good and I'm compliant, right? Like I had always thought I was compliant, but so she assured me that yes, that means we're done and I'm good. But
Congrats.
yeah, like when you open a business, you've got to do the accounting, you've got to do all this stuff, but sometimes you don't realize quite how much time the stuff that you're not necessarily super excited about doing is going to take. So I would say that's the biggest challenge. It's time. Unless you know a small business owner or you are a small business owner, I don't think you can really grasp the amount of time they put into that small business. And it's time they enjoy most of it, but it is a lot of time.
Denise, have you ever heard the phrase, entrepreneurs work 80 hours a week so they don't have to work 40 hours a week?
Yes. Yes, it is so true.
I was going to say, I think you just said that without saying it.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And I will say, I am married and I have two kids. So kudos to every entrepreneur's family for putting up with that.
Yes, indeed. Yep. I own a small business, but it's
Mhm.
not, a brick and mortar business. So I can only imagine the challenges that you and your family have.
Oh, thank you.
Much respect to your family.
Yes.
As we start to close this up, what's next for Gathering Volumes?
Oh, so we're still somewhat contemplating and looking at opening a second store, whether that be in Toledo or possibly in Findlay or, somewhere. So we're still sort of looking at that as a next step for gathering volumes. But otherwise, anything the community wants, I guess, is the answer. Like, again, we are a local independent bookstore. We try to design our bookstore to serve our community. So if somebody from the community comes in and says, hey, this would be a cool thing. When Packetans closed down, we brought in needle pointing stuff, mainly because I do needle pointing and I didn't know where else I was going to get as good a selection as Packetans used to have. So when we see something that we can fill, a need that we can fill, we're going to try and fill it.
I like that you're a gap filler. You're my kind of gal.
Yeah.
Awesome. We went through a lot, and I know you had some notes that you came in here with. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about as we wrap
I
this up?
came in mainly with notes with dates because I'm really bad at remembering dates. So I can't think of anything we didn't speak about that I wanted to speak about.
No dates you want to share?
No, I mentioned I think I mentioned the Bedazzle the book cover, which I'm super excited about because I just think it's going to be interesting and different. I mentioned the events offsite. I mentioned some of our onsite events. So I think I covered my dates.
Awesome. Way to go. And I know that you've got the website, the newsletter, the social media. I think you're on Facebook and Instagram, right?
Mhm.
Anything
Yep.
else that you want to give a shout out to for people to check out?
No.
Nope. All right. We covered it.
I
Awesome.
think we got it all in.
Any shout outs to your staff before we wrap this
Oh,
up?
so I mentioned Kelly and Sherry. So again, they're both authors as well as bookstore employees. So you can come in and check them out. Our high school student graduated, so we will be hiring soon, probably around August, because Echo's going to be going to school in Arkansas. So not a possible commute for us. Um, so yeah, if you ever wanted to work in a bookstore, keep an eye on. We normally put our that we're hiring out on our social media, and usually within 48 hours, we've gotten all the applications we need. So keep an eye on social media if you're interested in working at the bookstore. We do. When we first opened, I used to joke that there were days more people came in asking for a job than coming in looking for a book, but that doesn't happen very often anymore.
I remember when you started, it was just you, and then it
Yeah.
was you and you had a part-timer, and now
Mhm. Yep.
it's changed, and now you're looking to grow to a different location. So I've seen a lot of growth with your business, and I will
Yeah.
continue to be a customer.
Well, I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for being on the Perrysburg Podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
You are welcome. Thanks again to Denise Phillips for being my guest on episode 103 of the Perrysburg Podcast. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. I know I did, and I learned a thing or two about the bookstore that I've been shopping at for years. This was nice. I hope this series has inspired you to read a good book, whether it's this summer or whenever you find this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 103 of the Perrysburg Podcast. To find the show notes, head over to perrysburgpodcast.com and find episode 103. In the show notes, you will find the address and website for Gathering Volumes Bookstore, links to their Facebook and Instagram pages, a list of other episodes in this summer reading series, and more. Everything you need is on perrysburgpodcast.com. If you like this podcast, come on back. You can subscribe to or follow this podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. You can also sign up for my weekly newsletter, and then I'll email you each time a new episode comes out. Share this episode with anyone who might like to hear about Gathering Volumes Bookstore or my summer reading series. Thank you so much for listening today. Join me next week for my interview with Gary Franks. I'll talk to you then.